Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be comparing a couple of different coffee makers. I have the Instant Pod coffee and espresso maker that I have had for almost a year now, and I'm going to be comparing it to my new coffee maker that I've had for about a month, and it is the Keurig Supreme Plus from Costco. I've done a few videos on the Instant Pod coffee maker, so if you're interested in more detailed information and unboxing of that, I will link those videos up in the cards. And in my last video that I made about the Instant Pod, I shared some complaints about things I didn't love about it and asked you guys for suggestions of what coffee maker you think might address those concerns, and several of you mentioned the Keurig Supreme Plus, and I decided to go ahead and take the plunge and get the Keurig Supreme Plus from Costco. And as happens with me fairly often, as soon as I decided to purchase it, the very next ad that came out had this coffee maker on sale for $35 off. And at the time I'm recording this video, there's still like 2 weeks on that sale. So if this is something that you're interested in and you have a Costco near you, Costco membership, definitely check that out because it is on sale now for $99.99. Regular price at Costco is $134.99, and if you order it on Amazon, it's $159.99, and it doesn't even come with all the bonuses that you get when you order the Costco version. So if you jump on it, it's a really good deal right now. On Amazon right now, the Instant Pod coffee maker is $125. Of course, prices on Amazon are changing all the time. Also, you can get this one at Walmart, and right now I just checked at walmart.com and it was $134.99. So they're fairly comparable in price. Of course, prices fluctuate and there are different deals at different times, but overall, both of these coffee makers are pretty close to $134.99 as a regular price. So let's start off with what the Instant Pod coffee maker has going for it over the Keurig. And I sat down to write down all the pros and cons that I knew of between these two machines, and there's only one pro to the Instant Pod coffee maker that I could find over the Keurig. And granted, it is a very big pro, and the biggest pro, you probably have already guessed, is that the Instant Pod can do K-Cups and it can do the small Nespresso pods. So having the versatility to do the Nespresso pods as well as the K-Cups is by far the biggest pro to the Instant Pod. Now I'm going to compare some of the different features side by side of the two machines, and you'll see pretty quickly that the Keurig Supreme Plus pulls ahead really fast. First off, we'll talk about the water reservoirs. The Keurig Supreme Plus holds 77 ounces and the Instant Pod holds 67 ounces. So pretty similar. That's not a huge difference. The Keurig Supreme Plus does have the filter option, so you can actually filter your water in the reservoir, which is nice. Instant Pod does not have that. And if you get the Costco version of the Keurig Supreme Plus, you will get the add-on filter handle and one filter that you're supposed to change, I think, every 2 months. Another difference in the reservoir is that the Keurig Supreme Plus has the reservoir on the side with a handle, so you can pull it off easily like that. The Instant Pod has it on the back. It's still fairly easy to remove, but it is on the very back, so I would give points to the Keurig for more ease of use. Putting in a K-Cup and lifting the handle and closing the handle on the Keurig is extremely smooth. Of course, there is that pop on the K-Cup when it breaks the hole into the top and the bottom, so you'll feel a little bit of a pop when you press it down, but besides that, it's just very, very smooth, the handle. The Instant Pod is a little bit more rough and it's a little harder to press down when you put your K-Cup in. All in all, it's not too bad, but I do have to give points to the Keurig for being so smooth. Now, as far as cup size options, of course, the Instant Pod has the 3 options for the Nespresso pods, and that's 2 ounce, 4 ounce, and 6 ounce, and you can only use these with Nespresso pods. If you put a K-Cup in and hit one of these buttons, you're just gonna get hot water. But for the K-Cups, they have 8 ounce, 10 ounce, and 12 ounce, compared to the Keurig that has 4 ounce, 6 ounce, 8 ounce, 10 ounce, and 12 ounce. Another thing I wanted to throw in here about cup sizes is that I was suspecting that the Instant Pod was not quite accurate in how much coffee it was producing. When I hit the 8-ounce button, it seemed like I was getting more than 8 ounces. So I did do a test and I was correct. It was not quite accurate. I got about 9 ounces of water when I hit the 8-ounce button. And then I performed the same test on the Keurig and got pretty much exactly 8 ounces. It was right on the line. One other critique that I had of the Instant Pod was that it didn't seem to make the coffee hot enough for me, and that was kind of a bummer. I felt like I had to throw it in the microwave within like 5 minutes of it being brewed because it just was lukewarm already. And that was one of the things that really drew me to this Keurig model, is because it has 3 different temperature options. You can press this button here and you can toggle between 3 different temperature levels, and definitely when I put it on level 3 it is hot enough for me, so that has been wonderful. This model also has 3 levels of strength compared to the Instant Pod where there's no option, you just put it in and you get what you get. I found that it was never strong enough if I went above 8 ounces, and I often wished that I could get it a little bit stronger than the 8 ounces, or as we found out, the 9 ounces of coffee I was getting. So having the 3 strength options has been nice. I tried it with strength at level 3, and I actually found that it had kind of a chemically taste or a plastic taste, and I was wondering if it was like too strong, it was extracting too much and extracting some of the plastic taste from the K-cup. So I have been leaving it on strength level 2, and I don't get that plastic taste, and I'm still getting it good and strong for me. Strong enough that I can do a 10-ounce cup of coffee and it's stronger than the 8-ounce from the Instant Pod. One more feature that the Keurig has that the Instant Pod does not is this over ice button. And when you hit this button, you don't pick a size option. There's just one size, and I forget how many ounces of coffee it makes. But I will link up in the cards a video that went into the way that the over ice button brews if you're interested in learning more specifics about that, from a very helpful channel that I got some really good information on about this coffee maker. Another feature this Keurig has is being able to save favorites. So you can program your perfect cup of coffee and save it. And so when you come in the morning to brew your coffee and you're tired and groggy, you can just hit your button and hit brew and it will remember all of your settings. And I actually really like that about this coffee maker. I like that it gives you all of the options to be able to customize the way you want it with the temperature and the strength and the size, cup size and everything. But then you also have the benefit of it being just simple, like Keurigs are, designed to be. You can just press a button and go, but then you also have all of the customization features. Another complaint I had about the Instant Pod was how not user-friendly the buttons are. They are super annoying to press. You have to press them just right. If you press them too slow or too fast, it won't work. And it seems like you should just press harder, but pressing harder definitely doesn't work. You kind of have to get the right cadence to be able to press the button. Oh, I didn't even get it. There we go. And I truly do not understand why Instant Pot would have that problem in designing this coffee maker, because they have so many different machines with buttons and knobs, and none of them are like this. It boggles my mind that this would be a problem that they would deal with. So like I've said in my other reviews of this coffee maker, I've figured out how to do it and I can come in and make my coffee no problem. But when I have people over, I have to come over and teach a master class on how to use this coffee maker in order for them to be able to make a cup of coffee. And that's really not what I want with a Keurig style coffee maker. It's supposed to be easy, everyone can make their own, pick out what they like. But when I have to hover over here and teach everyone how to use it, it's just super annoying. Another difference of note is that whenever I would use the Instant Pod coffee maker, after I brewed and the brew was completely finished, it would sit and drip for quite some time. I always had to remember to clean the drip pan here because it would just get gross. And even sometimes I'd come back 20 minutes later and it was still like a drip every once in a while. So that's definitely a negative for the Instant Pod, and I will say that the Keurig, completely different. As soon as it finishes brewing, there are no more drips. So I've been very happy with that difference for sure. Another feature that the Keurig Supreme Plus has is that they have something new called multi-stream technology, which sounds pretty exciting. Basically, all that means is that instead of puncturing one hole into the top of the K-cup, they puncture 5 holes into the top of the K-cup. And so it has multiple streams of water going through. I imagine that's what helps the coffee get stronger. I definitely have no complaints about it. I love it. So with my reviews, I always like to keep in mind that not everyone is in the same context when they're looking for kitchen appliances, and your context is going to determine which machine is good for you. So what's best for me may not be best for somebody else. And so, for example, if having the espresso pod option is really important to you, this machine might be just the one you want. Also, if you're not a coffee snob, I admit I can be a coffee snob, and if you're not, and you just don't mind that it's not super hot, you don't mind that it's not super strong, you just really don't need those options, then this might be a perfect machine for you. And like I've mentioned, I've used this machine for almost a year now, and I really liked it. If I didn't somewhat like it, I wouldn't have used it every day for almost a year. But if you are a little bit more of a coffee snob like I am, and you like all the options and you like the little bit of extra bells and whistles, and you're not as concerned about the Nespresso pods, then definitely I would say that the Keurig Supreme Plus is going to be better for you than the Instant Pod. Also, Nespresso, as you probably know, has come out with a different kind of espresso pod, an espresso maker that uses a different shape of pod. And so I have a feeling that something like this may begin to become obsolete in a little while after those different shape of pods start becoming more common. And so my thinking in upgrading to this Keurig is that if in the future I have some money to spend and I feel like I really want to try another type of espresso pod machine, then I might try the Nespresso Virtuoso or something like that. But for now, it's not that big of a deal to me, and I'm really happy with the coffee I get from my Keurig, so that's what I'm sticking with. One of my takeaways from trying both of these coffee makers is that brands really should try to stick with what they're good at. When you say the word Keurig, you think of a pod style coffee maker. When you say the words Instant Pot, you think of a pressure cooker. And that's because that's what both of these companies do the best. Instant Pot does pressure cookers, Keurig does pod coffee makers. And there's a reason that we just call them Keurigs rather than pod coffee makers, or a reason that we call pressure cookers Instant Pots instead of pressure cookers. These brands have set the standard for their machine, and sometimes you just want to go with the standard. And I definitely learned that Keurig is the standard for a reason. They know what they're doing when they're making pod coffee makers. And if Keurig came out with a pressure cooker, I probably wouldn't buy it. One thing I wanted to mention here at the end is that if you buy the Costco Keurig Supreme Plus, you get some freebies with it, like some free pods and the water filter handle, the water filter, and you also get their new universal K-cup. This is a new design on their universal K-cup because their old universal K-cup is no longer universal, so that's funny, but this one's supposed to now be universal. But it was very confusing when we first got this and tried to use it, and the instructions that they added, both of them are not correct for this style of machine. So it was very confusing, and I did have to Google it and found some good information that I will link up in the cards. But real quick, if you do get this kind of coffee maker and you have a universal K-cup, what you're gonna do is you have to take off this adapter. This is for a different style of machine that you don't need at all in this one. And then also you open it up, take off the filter, and then this red gasket here you want to take off. We tried running it with this gasket in and it made a mess. So it's kind of silly that they don't have those instructions that come with this machine. They give you two sets of instructions, one for old style Keurigs and one for the Plus series. And you might think, well, this is a Keurig Supreme Plus, so I should follow the Plus instructions. But no, that's a different series completely, and it will not work if you try to do that. So to use it in the Keurig Supreme Plus, you put your coffee in there, of course, and then you pop that on and put that on and twist it so it looks like that. Then you have to take this black thing out in order for this to fit. So this just sits right in there like that. It doesn't really clip in, it just kind of sits in the grooves, and then you can brew. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you to all of you that gave suggestions on my previous video on the Instant Pot about which coffee maker I should get. Definitely was very helpful, and I am very happy with what I have now. See you in the next video.